Number 5. Night shift stories from people who worked alone. Intro. Most people think an empty building is quiet. It isn't. Not really. When everyone leaves, the elevators still move, the air vents still breathe through the walls, emergency lights keep glowing in places no one is supposed to be standing. And sometimes, in the middle of a night shift, you hear something that sounds ordinary at first. A door closing, footsteps on a stairwell, a phone ringing from an empty floor. Tonight's stories are about people who worked alone after midnight. People who thought they understood the places where they worked until they realized they weren't alone. Story 1. The man in the East Stairwell. I worked night security at the Calvert building for just under 11 months. It was a 19-story office tower in downtown Indianapolis, built sometime in the late 70s. From the street, it looked modern enough. Dark glass, steel frames, a bright lobby with a marble floor that always looked cleaner at night than it did during the day. But once the tenants went home, the building felt old. Not haunted, not at first, just old. The kind of old that made strange sounds when the temperature changed. The kind of old where you could hear water moving through pipes behind the walls, or an elevator cable groaning 3 floors above you. Most nights, I was alone from 11 until 7. There were cameras at the front entrance, loading dock, parking garage, lobby, elevators, and most of the main hallways. The only place the cameras didn't fully cover was the East Stairwell. The East Stairwell ran from the basement to the roof. It had a narrow concrete staircase, green-painted metal railings, and motion lights that always took a second too long to turn on. During my first week, the day supervisor gave me one piece of advice. Don't use the East Stairs unless you have to. I asked him why. He shrugged. Bad cameras, bad lighting, too many blind spots. That was all he said. For the first few months, nothing happened. I walked the same route every night. I checked the front doors. I checked the loading dock. I checked the elevators. Then I sat in the security office near the lobby and watched the monitors while drinking bad coffee from a paper cup. The job was boring. That was why I liked it. After working construction for years, boring felt like a gift. Then, one Tuesday night in November, at exactly 1:13 in the morning, the fire door alarm on the 9th floor went off. It was not a fire alarm. It was just the sound that played when a secured stairwell door was opened for more than 30 seconds. A soft, repetitive beep. Beep, beep, beep. I looked at the screen. 9th floor. East Stairwell. Access door. I checked the camera feed for the hallway. Nothing. The hall was dark. Empty cubicles behind glass walls. A copy room with the lights off. A row of conference rooms reflecting the emergency exit signs. I checked the access log. No badge scan. That was strange. Every employee door required a badge after 8 at night. If someone opened that stairwell door from the 9th floor side, the system should have recorded it. But there was nothing. No name. No badge number. No entry. Just the alarm. I grabbed my radio, clipped it to my belt, and took the elevator up. The doors opened onto the 9th floor. The hallway lights were off. Only the exit signs were glowing. I remember standing there for a second, listening. At first, there was nothing. Then I heard a metal door close somewhere to my left. Not slam, just close. Slowly, I walked toward the East Stairwell. The door was shut when I reached it. I tried the handle, locked. I pulled out my master key card and swiped it. The light turned green. Inside, the stairwell was cold. The motion light came on above me with a weak electrical hum. I looked up. The stairwell curved upward toward the 10th floor. I looked down. It disappeared into the darkness below. Security, I called out. My voice bounced off the concrete walls. Is anyone in here? Nothing. I started up toward the 10th floor. Halfway between the 9th and 10th levels, I saw something on the landing above me. A shoe. At least, that was what I thought it was. The toe of a black work boot, standing just beyond the railing. I stopped. The light above that landing was off. I could not see the person wearing it. Then the boot moved. One step backward, out of sight. I raised my radio. This is security. Identify yourself. No answer. I climbed the remaining steps quickly. When I reached the landing, there was no one there. Just an empty grey wall, a fire extinguisher cabinet, and another flight of stairs leading to the 10th floor. I checked the door to the 10th floor. Locked. I checked the 9th floor door below me. Locked. For a moment, I thought I had imagined it. Maybe the shape I saw had been a shadow. Maybe it had been part of the railing. Maybe I had been tired. Then the radio on my belt crackled. A voice came through. Low, static covered. Marley, don't go up. I froze. Who is this? I asked. The radio crackled again. Don't go up there. He stared at it. Only one radio had been issued that night. Mine. There was no second guard. No maintenance crew. No cleaning staff scheduled. I pressed the call button. Identify yourself. Nothing. Then the voice said something else. Something that made the hair rise on my arms. He knows you're alone. The radio went silent. I stood in that stairwell for what felt like a full minute. Then I went back down to the 9th floor. I didn't run. I wish I could say I stayed calm, but I didn't. I walked fast enough that my knees hurt by the time I reached the elevator. Back in the lobby, I locked the security office door and pulled up every camera feed at once. Front entrance, empty. Parking garage, empty. Loading dock, empty. Elevators, empty. 9th floor hallway, empty. Then I noticed something on the camera for the 6th floor. At the end of the hallway, near the East Stairwell door, a man was standing completely still. He wore a dark maintenance jacket, dark trousers, a black cap. His face was turned away from the camera. At first, I thought he might be a contractor, but there were no contractors scheduled, and he was not holding tools. He was holding a clipboard. I zoomed in. The image became grainy, but I could see he had one hand resting on the stairwell door, like he had been waiting for someone to come through it. Then he looked directly at the camera. The feed went black. I called the building manager. He answered on the 4th ring, half asleep. I told him someone was inside. He told me to call the police. I did. The dispatcher asked if the man was threatening anyone. I said I didn't know. She asked if he had a weapon. I said I couldn't see one. She told me to stay in the security office, keep the doors locked, and wait for officers. That was when the desk phone rang. I looked at it for several seconds before I answered. Calvert Building Security. There was a pause. Then a woman whispered, "Is he still on the 6th floor?" I looked at the monitor. The camera feed was still black. "Who is this?" I asked. "He's looking for you." Her voice sounded terrified. "Who are you?" "I work upstairs." "No one is supposed to be upstairs." There was silence. Then she said, "I know." The call disconnected. I checked the phone display. The call had come from extension 914. I stared at the number. Then I opened the building directory. Extension 914 belonged to a desk on the 9th floor, a desk that had been removed years before. The entire 9th floor had been renovated. There was no working phone there. There was no working cable there. I called the extension back. The line rang once. Then someone picked up. No one spoke, but I could hear breathing. Slow, close breathing. Then I heard a sound in the background. 3 soft knocks against metal. Tap, tap, tap. The same sound I had heard in the stairwell. I hung up. At 1:27, the 6th floor camera came back on. The hallway was empty, but the east stairwell door was open. I watched it for almost 10 seconds. Then the man stepped out. He did not look at the camera this time. He walked slowly toward the elevators. I switched to the elevator feed. A few seconds later, the doors opened. He stepped inside. He pressed the button for the lobby. My stomach dropped. I locked the security office door again. Then I pushed a filing cabinet against it. The office had one small window facing the lobby. From where I sat, I could see the elevators. I could also see the front glass doors. Rain was falling outside, thin silver lines sliding down the glass. The elevator numbers began to change. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The doors opened. No one came out. I waited. Nothing. Then the phone rang again. I didn't answer. It rang until it stopped. A few seconds later, the security monitor changed. The lobby camera flickered, and there he was. Not outside the office, not near the elevators. He was standing at the far end of the lobby, beside the front doors. He was staring directly at the security office window. Even through the grainy camera feed, I could feel it. He knew where I was. He started walking toward me, slowly, not rushing, not hiding, just walking. I heard footsteps in the lobby, real footsteps, soft, against the marble floor. He stopped outside the security office. I could see the bottom of his shoes beneath the door. He did not knock. He just stood there. For almost a minute, there was no sound. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, too calm. Avon. I stopped breathing. I had never told anyone my name that night. There was no nameplate on the door, no uniform with my name on it. Nothing. He spoke again. Evan, I know you can hear me. I held my phone against my chest and stayed silent. The man moved closer to the door. I heard the metal knob turn slowly. Once, then twice. The door didn't open. The filing cabinet held. He let go of the handle. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then he laughed. Not loudly, just a small, tired laugh. Like he had expected the door to be locked. He walked away. I waited until I could no longer hear his footsteps. Then I looked through the narrow office window. The lobby was empty, but the front doors were still locked. No one could have left. The police arrived 4 minutes later. 2 officers came through the front entrance with flashlights drawn low. I unlocked the office. They searched every floor, every bathroom, every conference room, every stairwell. They found no one. But at around 3 in the morning, one of the officers called me down to the basement. Behind an old water heater room, there was a maintenance panel I had never noticed. The panel had been forced open. Behind it was a narrow utility passage, not large enough to walk through comfortably, but large enough for someone to crawl. Inside, they found a blanket, bottled water, canned food, a flashlight, a police scanner, and a stack of papers. The papers were printed security schedules, building maps, floor plans, lists of employees who worked late. There were notes beside certain names. Most were simple. Leaves at 7:40, usually alone. Drives grey Honda. But one page was different. It had my name at the top, Avon Parker. Underneath were notes about me. What time I arrived, when I bought coffee, which route I walked first, what days I called my sister during break. And at the bottom of the page, written in black ink, were 6 words. And a trigger 9. He always goes up. The officers believed the man had been living inside the building for weeks, maybe months. They thought he used old maintenance tunnels to move between floors and avoid the cameras. They thought he had opened the 9th floor stairwell door to get me out of the lobby, to see how I responded, to learn my routine. They never found him. The security manager installed cameras in the East Stairwell 2 days later. They sealed every maintenance passage. They changed the locks. I quit before the end of the month. I told myself it was because I didn't feel safe there anymore. That was true, but there was something else. A week after I left, I got a call at home. The number was blocked. I answered without thinking. At first, there was nothing. Then I heard the sound of an elevator bell, a soft chime, the doors opening, and a man's voice very close to the phone. Don't go up. Number, story 2, the voice on the emergency line. I had worked as a 911 dispatcher for almost 6 years when the call came in. By then, I had learned that panic had a sound. Some people screamed. Some people whispered. Some people spoke too calmly because their minds had not caught up with what was happening. And sometimes, the scariest calls were the quiet ones. The ones where nobody said anything at all. It was a Thursday night in late January. A winter storm had moved through central Ohio earlier that evening, leaving the roads glazed with ice and the sky the color of wet concrete. The night shift had been busy at first. Minor crashes, a power outage near the river, an elderly man who had fallen in his kitchen. By 2 a.m, things had settled down. The dispatch center was dimly lit, with rows of monitors casting blue light across the room. There were only 4 of us on duty. Me, a dispatcher named Craig, sitting 2 stations down, our supervisor, Helen, in the office behind the glass wall, and a trainee named Mia, who had been listening to calls beside another operator. I remember checking the time on my screen, 2:19 a.m. Then my line flashed. The caller ID showed no number, just a location, 1847 Hollow Creek Road. I recognized the address immediately. Everyone in our county knew Hollow Creek Road. It was a narrow rural road west of town, lined with abandoned farms, empty fields, and stretches of woodland where the cell signal disappeared. The address itself belonged to an old white farmhouse. It had been vacant for years. I knew that because police had been sent there more than once for trespassing reports, fire calls, and teenagers breaking in during the summer. I clicked the line, 911. What is the address of your emergency? For 3 seconds, no one answered. I heard a soft, crackling noise. Not static, something else. Like wind moving through an open window. Then a woman spoke. Please, don't send them here. Her voice was low, controlled, but underneath it, I could hear she was trying not to cry. I sat up straighter. Ma'am, are you at 1847 Hollow Creek Road? Another pause. Yes. Are you in immediate danger? The woman inhaled slowly. Then she said, he can hear the cars. I looked at the address on my screen again. Who can hear the cars? He knows when people are coming. Who is he? The woman did not answer. Instead, she whispered, please don't send anyone with lights on. I pulled my headset closer. Ma'am, I need to know what is happening. Is someone inside the house with you? There was a sound in the background, a floorboard creaking. The woman stopped breathing. I could hear it. Then she spoke again, more quietly. He's downstairs. I typed as she spoke. Female caller, possible intruder, vacant residence, unknown male downstairs. Are you able to leave the house? I asked. No. Is there a door or window you can lock? I locked the bedroom. Do you have a weapon? No. Can you tell me your name? For the first time, her voice changed. Not louder, just colder. You already know my name. I stopped typing. Mum, you have it on the screen. I looked at the caller information, the address, the line status, the emergency service map. There was no name, no account holder, nothing. "I don't see your name," I said. The woman let out a soft, shaking breath. "Yes, you do." Then she said my name, Lena. Everything inside me went still. No one at my station had said my name. Not out loud. My name was printed on my screen, but only I could see it. The caller could not possibly know it. I looked over at Craig. He was focused on another call, one hand pressed over his other ear. I glanced toward Helen's office. She was looking down at paperwork. Neither of them had noticed anything. "Ma'am," I said carefully, "how do you know my name?" The line went quiet. Then the woman whispered, "He told me." At that moment, I heard another sound. Not from the call. From somewhere inside the dispatch center. 3 soft knocks. Tap, tap, tap. I looked toward the glass entrance door at the far end of the room. The hallway outside was empty. The security lights were on. Nothing moved. "Lena?" the woman said. I brought my attention back to the call. "I'm here. He says you shouldn't look at the windows." I felt my hands turn cold. I looked at the large dark window behind the dispatch stations. It faced the employee parking lot. Snow had started falling again, thin white streaks crossing the glass beneath the exterior lamps. There was no one outside. Not that I could see. "Ma'am, stay where you are," I said. "I'm sending deputies to your location." "No. I understand you're afraid, but we need to send help." "You don't understand." I entered the call for service anyway. 2 deputies were already near the west side of the county after responding to a traffic accident. I typed the priority code, possible home invasion, caller hiding in upstairs bedroom. The woman began speaking quickly. "No lights. Tell them no lights." "I'll tell them. Tell them not to park in the driveway." "Okay." "Tell them not to go through the front door." "Okay." "Tell them not to say my name." I paused. "What is your name?" The woman went silent. Then I heard the sound of a door opening somewhere in the background. Very slowly, a long wooden creak. The caller whispered, "He found the hallway." I could hear her breathing now, fast and shallow. "Ma'am, listen to me," I said. "Stay on the line. Do not make any noise. The deputies are on their way." "He knows." "Who knows?" "The man downstairs." Another creak. Closer. The woman covered the mouthpiece with her hand, but I still heard her whisper, "Please don't let him come upstairs." I looked at the map. The deputies were 9 minutes away. On dry roads, it would have been less, but the roads were iced over. 9 minutes could become 15. I wanted to ask whether there was a closet, a bathroom, a window she could climb through. But before I could speak, the caller said something that made my blood run cold. "He's standing outside your building." I turned toward the window. The parking lot looked empty, just snow, streetlights, a row of cars covered in a thin layer of white. "No, he isn't," I said. The woman began crying, not loudly, just one broken breath after another. "You should have listened," she whispered. The entire dispatch center went dark. Every monitor, every overhead light, every computer screen. For half a second, there was total blackness. Then the emergency backup power kicked in. Red lights came on along the ceiling. The screens flickered back one by one. A low alarm began to sound somewhere in the building. Not the fire alarm, the security alarm. Helen stepped out of her office. "What happened?" she asked. "No idea," Craig said. Mia stood frozen beside her station. My caller was still connected. I could hear the woman breathing. Then the sound of footsteps, not in the farmhouse, not from her end. They were coming through my headset, but they sounded close enough to be inside the room. Slow footsteps, walking across something hard, concrete. Then the woman whispered, "He's in the lobby now." I looked toward the glass entrance door. At the far end of the hallway, beyond the locked security doors, a man was standing under the emergency light. For a second, I thought it was a police officer. He wore a dark winter coat. His head was lowered. His face was hidden beneath a black knit cap. But no officer would have been able to enter the secured lobby without buzzing in. And no officer would have stood there without saying anything. "Helen," I said. She turned toward me. I pointed at the glass door. Everyone looked. The man was gone. The hallway was empty. Helen frowned. "What did you see?" "There was someone outside." She walked toward the door. I stood up quickly. "Don't open it." She stopped. "Lena, it's locked." "I know." The call crackled in my headset. Then the woman said, "Don't let her open it." Helen looked back at me. "What?" I did not answer. I stared at the call screen. The address was still listed as 1847 Hollow Creek Road. The timer was still moving. 8 minutes, 31 seconds. I pressed the radio button to contact the deputies. "Unit 12, Unit 9, this is dispatch. Be advised. Caller reports suspect may be aware of your approach. Use no emergency lights. Avoid the driveway and front entrance." Unit 12 answered, "Copy that. We're 3 minutes out." The woman whispered, "Too late." "What do you mean?" "He's outside the bedroom." Then I heard something scrape against wood. One long, slow sound, like fingernails moving across a door. The woman began breathing faster. "Ma'am, stay quiet," I said. "The deputies are almost there. I can see his shadow. Do not open the door." "I'm not going to." "What can you see?" The woman was crying now. "He's standing under the door." I looked around the dispatch center. Craig had finished his call and was watching me. Helen was standing beside my station. Mia looked pale. No one said a word. The woman continued. His feet are facing the wrong way." For a moment, I didn't understand. Then she whispered, "His shoes are pointing toward the stairs, but his shadow is facing my door." The call went silent. Then there was a loud impact, the sound of something hitting the bedroom door. The woman screamed. The line erupted with static. I stood up so fast, my chair rolled backward into the wall. Ma'am, can you hear me?" "Nothing, just static." Then a man's voice came through the line, deep, calm, almost gentle. "You're very good at your job, Lena." I could not move. "You listen closely," the man said. His voice was not coming from the farmhouse. It was coming from somewhere nearby. It had the same empty, flat quality as a recording played through a bad speaker. I looked toward the window again. This time, I saw him. He was standing at the edge of the parking lot, far enough away that I could barely make out his face. He was looking up at the dispatch center. The security lights around him flickered, then went out. The man disappeared into darkness. "Lena," Helen said sharply, "what is going on?" I pointed toward the parking lot, but when she looked, there was nothing. The radio crackled. "Unit 12 came through. Dispatch, we're at the location." I grabbed the radio. "Status?" There was a pause. Then the deputy said, "There's no house here." I stared at the call screen. "What?" "Address is empty. Just a field and an old foundation." "That's not possible." "Negative structure, no lights, no driveway, nothing matching the call." My heart began pounding. I pulled up the property record on another screen. The map loaded slowly. Then the information appeared. 1847 Hollow Creek Road. The structure had been demolished in 1998, 28 years earlier. I read the note twice. Then, a third time, the house was gone. The land had been vacant for nearly 3 decades. "Unit 12, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Search the property. There may be someone in the area." The deputy answered carefully. "Dispatch. There are no tracks in the snow. I looked at the snow falling outside our building. I looked at the window. The man in the parking lot had been standing on fresh snow. There should have been footprints. I stood up and walked closer to the glass. Helen told me not to. I didn't listen. At the edge of the parking lot, beneath the burned-out security light, there was one dark shape in the snow. Not a person. A small, black object. I called building security from my cell phone. Then I called the police unit parked near the courthouse. 2 officers arrived within minutes and searched the lot. They found a black landline telephone, an old one, the kind with a coiled cord. It was sitting upright in the snow. The receiver was off the hook. The cord had been cut. There was no phone line anywhere near it. No footprints leading to it. No footprints leading away. One officer picked it up with a gloved hand. The phone was still warm. At 2:42 a.m., the call from Hollow Creek Road disconnected. No one ever found the woman. No one ever identified the man. The deputies searched the field where the farmhouse used to stand until sunrise. They found only the old foundation, half buried beneath snow and weeds. But near what had once been the upstairs bedroom, they found a rusted metal vent cover. Underneath it, in the dirt, was a cassette recorder. The tape inside had been damaged by water. Most of it was nothing but hiss. But the forensic lab recovered part of a recording. A woman was speaking. She was terrified. She was telling someone not to send the police. Then the tape changed. The woman's voice became quieter, older somehow, and she said one sentence over and over again: "Don't let him hear the cars." I resigned 2 months later. I told people the job had become too stressful. That was true, but I never told anyone the real reason. For the next year, every time I drove home after a night shift, I checked my rearview mirror at every red light. I checked the empty parking lot outside my apartment. I checked the locks. And sometimes when my phone rang from an unknown number after midnight, I would let it ring until it stopped, because I was afraid that one night I would answer, and a woman's voice would whisper from the other end of the line, "You already know my name. Number story 3, the gas station that closed at midnight." I took the overnight job at Wilson's Fuel because I needed money. That was the only reason. I was 24 behind on rent and trying to save enough to leave the town I grew up in. Wilson sat just outside Cedar Falls, off Highway 19, where the road cut through miles of farmland before disappearing into the woods. During the day, it was a normal gas station. Coffee machines, lottery tickets, energy drinks, a small aisle of snacks no one ever bought unless they were desperate. But after midnight, it changed. The highway became quiet. The diner across the road closed. The traffic lights flashed yellow, and every car that pulled in seemed to have been driving for a very long time. The shift ran from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. Most nights, I saw truck drivers, college kids coming back from parties, and people who looked too tired to remember where they were going. The manager, Mr. Wilson, had one rule. At 12:30, I was supposed to lock the side entrance. At 1, I locked the main doors. After that, customers could pay through the service window. No exceptions, he told me on my first night. I asked why. He looked at me for a second too long. Because people change after midnight. I laughed. He didn't. The first few weeks were boring. I listened to podcasts through one earbud, wiped down counters, counted cigarettes, and watched headlights pass across the wet asphalt outside. Then came the night of February 3rd. It was raining hard. Not the kind of rain that falls straight down. The wind was throwing it sideways across the parking lot, making the security lights blink through sheets of grey water. At 12:45, I locked the side door. At 1, I locked the main entrance. I was standing behind the counter making coffee when a dark sedan pulled into pump 4. It was an older car, black or dark blue. I couldn't tell through the rain. The driver stayed inside for a minute. Then he got out. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark suit jacket with no coat over it. That was the first strange thing. It was freezing outside. Everyone else who came in wore something heavy. This man walked through the storm as though he didn't feel it. He came to the main door and pulled on it. Locked. He looked through the glass at me. I pointed toward the service window. He didn't move. He just stood there. Rain running down his face, one hand resting against the door. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, more like he had been waiting for me to notice him. I walked to the service window and slid it open an inch. "Sorry," I said. "We're closed inside after 1. The man leaned closer. His face was pale beneath the fluorescent lights. "Are you alone?" I had heard enough strange questions in my life to know not to answer that one. "What can I get you?" I asked. He looked around the store. His eyes moved past the shelves, the coffee machine, the cooler doors. Then he said, "You have a bathroom in the back?" "No public restroom after closing. I don't need to use it." He stared at him. He smiled again. "I just wanted to know." I began closing the service window. He lifted one hand. "Wait." I stopped. He looked directly at my name tag. "Ellie." I felt my stomach tighten. "Yes?" "You should lock the storeroom too." Then he walked away. He got back into the sedan. For a moment, I thought he was leaving. But instead of pulling out of the lot, he drove around the back of the building. The cameras did not cover that side. I waited for him to come around again. He didn't. I watched the rear security monitor. Nothing. Then I heard a sound. 3 soft knocks from somewhere behind me. Tap, tap, tap. I turned around. The storeroom door was closed. The door had a small metal lock on it, but I had never used it. The manager kept cleaning supplies and extra boxes in there. Nothing valuable. Nothing anyone would want. Still, I walked over and locked it. Then I called Mr. Wilson. He answered on the 6th ring. "What happened?" he asked. I told him about the man. There was a long pause. Then he said, "What kind of car?" "Dark sedan. Older model. I couldn't see the plate." "What did he look like?" "Tall, thin, dark, suit jacket." Another silence. Then Mr. Wilson said something that made me grip the counter. "Did he ask if you were alone?" "Yes." "Did he ask about the back room?" "Yes." "Listen to me," he said. "Do not go outside. Do not unlock that door. And if he comes back, call the sheriff." "Who is he?" Mr. Wilson didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Eli, has the car left?" I looked through the front window. Pump 4 was empty. The sedan was gone. "I think so." "You think?" "I didn't see it leave." Mr. Wilson exhaled slowly. "Stay by the counter. I'm coming down." He lived 20 minutes away. In a storm, it would take longer. I hung up and checked every camera again. Front lot, empty. Pumps, empty. Service window, empty. Back entrance, static. The rear camera had gone black. I tried to reset it. Nothing changed. At 1:15, the phone rang. The display showed an unknown number. I answered. "Wilson's Fuel." For a few seconds, I heard nothing. Then a man said, "You locked the wrong door." I dropped the phone. It hit the counter and slid toward the lottery ticket display. The caller was still on the line. I could hear rain in the background. Then the sound of a car engine idling. I picked the phone back up. "Who is this?" The man did not answer. Instead, he said, "The storeroom is empty." My eyes moved to the locked door. "You should be more worried about the cooler." The line disconnected. I stood there, listening. The refrigerators hummed behind me. The coffee machine bubbled. Wind shook the glass doors. Then, from the drink cooler at the far end of the store, I heard something hit the glass. Once, twice. A low, dull impact. I slowly walked toward it. The cooler doors were fogged from the inside. I could see rows of bottled water, soda cans, energy drinks. Nothing else. Then a handprint appeared on the glass. From inside the cooler, 5 pale fingers slowly pressed against the fogged door. I stumbled backward. The handprint remained there for 1 second. Then it slid down the glass and disappeared. I didn't stop to think. I called 911. The dispatcher asked for the address. I gave it. Then I told her someone was inside the gas station. She asked where I had seen them. I looked toward the cooler. The handprint was gone. I don't know, I said. I think he got in through the back. Is the suspect visible? No. Can you get somewhere secure? I looked at the security office near the back hallway. It had no window and a solid metal door. I grabbed my phone and ran inside. The office was small. A desk, a filing cabinet, a monitor connected to the cameras. I locked the door and turned off the overhead light. On the screen, the front camera showed the parking lot, still empty. Then the image flickered. The dark sedan was back. It was parked directly in front of the store. The driver's door was open. The man was standing beside it, but he was not looking at the building. He was looking toward the highway, as if he was waiting for someone. Then another car appeared on the road, an old white pickup truck. It slowed as it passed the gas station. The man in the suit lifted one arm. The truck stopped. For a moment I thought the driver might be asking for directions, but the man did not approach the truck. He only stood there. The pickup idled. Then, slowly, it turned into the parking lot. It parked beside the sedan. The driver stepped out. He was an older man in a heavy work coat. He walked toward the front door. The man in the suit followed behind him. I picked up the store phone and called the front line. The old man reached for the door. Locked. He looked through the glass. His face was confused. Then he saw me on the security monitor. I rushed out of the office and went to the service window. The older man came over quickly. Are you open? He asked. We're closed inside. What do you need? My truck's overheating, he said. I just need to use a phone. Use your cell. Battery's dead. I looked past him. The man in the suit was still standing near pump 4, watching us. The older man followed my eyes. Then he turned around. His face changed. What the hell is that? What? That man. I looked again. The man in the suit had vanished. The older man stepped closer to the service window. I saw him standing in the middle of the road 10 miles back, he said. You know him? No. He was just standing there, in the rain. I almost hit him. I felt my hands go cold. What happened? I stopped. I thought he was hurt. Then he started walking toward my truck. The old man looked over his shoulder. He got in the passenger side. I stared at him. No, he didn't. The old man's expression went blank. He turned toward the sedan. The passenger door was open. The inside light glowed pale yellow, but there was no one in the seat. The older man backed away slowly. Then his truck horn began honking. One long, steady blast. The pickup was parked behind him, keys still in the ignition. The horn continued. Then the headlights turned on. The older man looked at me. I didn't turn that on. The horn stopped. For 1 second, the entire parking lot was silent. Then the front door unlocked. I heard the deadbolt slide open by itself. The old man grabbed the handle. I shouted, "Don't open it." But he pulled. The door opened 2 inches. A wall of cold rain blew inside, and from somewhere behind him, close to his ear, a man whispered, "You should have kept driving." The older man screamed. He spun around. There was no one there. Then he ran. He ran through the rain toward his truck, got inside, and drove away so fast his tires sprayed water across the lot. The front door slowly swung shut. I locked it again. This time, I dragged a heavy display shelf in front of it. At 1:34, the sheriff's deputy arrived. He searched the store, the lot, the rear driveway, and the woods behind the building. He found no man, no signs of forced entry. But when he checked the cooler, he found something stuck beneath the bottom shelf. A soaked photograph. It showed Wilson's fuel from the road. The picture was old. The sign still had its original logo. The pumps were different, and there was snow on the ground. At the bottom of the photo, in faded ink, was a date, February 3rd, 1999. Exactly 27 years earlier. The deputy looked at me. "Do you know who took this?" I shook my head. Then Mr. Wilson arrived. He saw the photograph and went pale. He sat down on the floor behind the counter. For a long time, he would not speak. Finally, he told us what happened. Before he owned the station, his father had run it. One night in 1999, a man was found dead in the parking lot. He had been hit by a car on Highway 19 and somehow walked nearly 2 miles through a snowstorm before collapsing near Pump 4. No one knew his name. No one ever came to claim him. But according to Mr. Wilson, the man had been wearing a dark suit jacket. No coat, no gloves, no shoes. I quit 2 weeks later. I never went back to pick up my last paycheck. Mr. Wilson mailed it to me. Inside the envelope was a note. Just one sentence. "The station closes at midnight now." I still drive past Wilson's Fuel sometimes. The building is there, the sign is there, the pumps are there, but after midnight, every light is off, every door is locked, and no matter how hard it rains, there is never a car parked at Pump 4. Story 4. The ranger station's final transmission. I took the overnight position at Wren Ridge Ranger Station because I thought I understood solitude. I had spent most of my 20s working seasonal jobs in places where the nearest town was an hour away. Trail maintenance in Oregon, firewatch support in Northern California, a winter job plowing access roads near Yellowstone. I liked remote places. I liked the silence after dark. I liked knowing that the world could become very small when you were surrounded by trees, snow, or mountains. But there is a difference between being alone in the wilderness and realizing that something in the wilderness knows exactly where you are. Wren Ridge sat on the eastern edge of Black Pine National Forest in western Montana. The station was little more than a squat, brown building with a radio tower behind it, 2 old service vehicles, and a chain-link gate at the end of a long gravel road. During summer, the place was busy. Rangers checked permits. Families asked for directions. Lost hikers came in looking embarrassed and sunburned. But by late October, after the campgrounds closed and the roads began icing over, Wren Ridge became quiet. Very quiet. That year, I was assigned to cover the station overnight while the district prepared for winter shutdown. My job was simple. Monitor the radio, keep an eye on the weather, log any emergency calls, make sure no one entered the closed sections of the forest after dark. The station had 1 main room with a desk, 3 radio consoles, a wall of old maps, and a narrow hallway leading to a storage room and a tiny break area. There was a cot in the back, but I rarely used it. Most nights, I drank coffee and watched the cameras. One pointed at the front gate, One at the parking lot, one toward the west trailhead. The last camera faced the old fire road that climbed through the trees toward an abandoned lookout tower. No one used that road anymore. It had washed out years earlier after a spring flood. There were warning signs at both ends, a locked steel gate, and a notice posted in large red letters. Road closed. No entry beyond this point. The first time I asked about the tower, the day supervisor gave me an answer I thought was strange. "Don't worry about it," he said. "People still try to go up there? Sometimes. Teenagers? Mostly." Then he stopped sorting papers and looked at me. "If you hear anything from Tower Road after midnight, call dispatch first." What kind of thing? He looked back down at the papers. Anything. That was it. No explanation. No story. Just the instruction. For the first 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then, on a Thursday night near the end of November, the temperature dropped below freezing. A storm had been moving through the mountains all evening, bringing wet snow and wind strong enough to make the radio tower hum. At 11:30, the local deputies finished checking in. At midnight, the forest went dark. The power did not go out, but the clouds covered the moon, and the trees beyond the windows became one solid black wall. I was sitting at the desk, writing a weather update in the logbook, when Radio 2 clicked on by itself. At first I assumed it was static. The speakers often picked up distant transmissions during storms. But then I heard a man's voice, a faint, broken by interference. "Wren Ridge 7 to base." I looked up. The call sign was old. Wren Ridge 7 had not been used in years. Everyone knew that. It belonged to Daniel Rusk. Daniel had been a forest ranger assigned to the district nearly a decade earlier. One night in early November, he left Wren Ridge Station to investigate a report of someone driving up Tower Road. He never came back. His truck was found at the locked gate the next morning. The engine was still running. The driver's door was open. His radio was missing. No body was ever found. Most people in the district called it an accident, a fall, hypothermia, a man getting lost during a storm. But people who had worked with Daniel told different versions. They said he had called into the station before he disappeared. They said his last transmission made no sense. They said he kept repeating the same sentence until the radio went dead. I had never heard what that sentence was. Not until that night. Radio 2 crackled again. "Wren Ridge 7 to base." I leaned toward the console. "This is Wren Ridge Station. Identify yourself." For a moment, only static answered. Then the man spoke. "Don't send anyone up the road." His voice was low, breathless, not panicked. That was what made it worse. He sounded like someone trying very hard not to panic. I picked up the microphone. "Who is this?" The radio hissed. Then the voice said, "Cal?" I stared at the speaker. No one used my name on the radio. Not unless they knew exactly who was on duty. "This is Ranger Harker," I said. "Identify yourself." The man did not answer. Instead, I heard wind rushing through the transmission, then something metallic striking against something hollow, once, twice, like a loose sign banging against a pole. "Cal," the voice said again. This time, it was closer. "You need to turn off the west camera." I looked toward the monitor wall. The screen showing the west trailhead was black. The screen beside it, Tower Road, was still live. Snow moved sideways through the camera's view. The locked gate stood at the bottom of the hill. Everything beyond it was hidden by trees. Then the image flickered. For less than a second, I saw a figure standing on the other side of the gate. Tall, still, wearing what looked like a dark ranger jacket. Then the feed snapped back to normal. The gate was empty. I grabbed the radio again. Who is at Tower Road? The voice on Radio 2 whispered, "Don't look for him." Then the transmission cut out. I sat there for a while, listening to the wind hit the building. The correct thing to do was call district dispatch. So I did. The dispatcher on duty was a woman named Nora, working from the county office 40 miles away. "Wren Ridge," she said. "Go ahead. Did you receive any traffic from Tower Road?" There was a pause. "No. I got a transmission on Radio 2, old call sign, Wren Ridge 7. Her tone changed. "Say that again." "Wren Ridge 7. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Nora said, "Cal, do not respond if it comes through again." "I already did." Another pause. "Did it say anything?" I looked at the Tower Road camera. The gate was still empty. "It told me not to send anyone up there." Nora exhaled quietly. "Okay, log the time. Do not leave the station. I'm calling your supervisor." "What is this about?" "Stay inside, Cal." "Nora," her voice lowered. "Daniel Rusk used that call sign." "I know. And the night he disappeared, he called Wren Ridge Station from Tower Road." I felt my hands grow cold around the microphone. "What did he say?" Nora hesitated. Then she said, "He told the operator not to turn on the west camera." The lights in the station flickered. Not off, just once. A quick drop in brightness. Then they steadied. I looked toward the west camera monitor. It had turned on. I was sure it had been black. Now it showed the west trailhead under heavy snowfall. At first, I saw nothing. Then I noticed a man standing beside the sign at the edge of the road. He was too far away for the camera to catch details, but he was facing directly toward the station. He was not moving. He was not shielding his face from the snow. He was just standing there. "Nora," I said, "there's someone at the west trailhead. Do you have visual confirmation?" "Yes." "Is he trying to enter?" "No." "Keep the doors locked. I'm notifying deputies." The man on the camera lifted one arm. Slowly, he pointed toward the woods. Then the feed went black. The radio clicked. "Cal," the voice said. I did not answer. "Cal, he knows you can hear me." I stared at the speaker. Nora was still on the phone. "Who is talking?" she asked. "You can hear that?" "No," she said. "I can hear you breathing. What is happening?" The radio crackled again. The man's voice sounded closer now. Not louder, closer. As if he was speaking from the hallway behind me. "Don't let them use the lights." I turned around. The hallway was empty. The storage room door was shut. The break room light was off. Nothing moved. "Cal?" Nora said. "Talk to me." "I'm here." "Are the deputies on their way?" "I don't know." "You need to stay on the line." Then every radio in the room came alive at once. Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio 3, the emergency weather receiver. All of them hissed with static. A dozen broken voices spoke over one another. At first, I could not understand anything. Then the static thinned, and I heard the same sentence repeated from every speaker. "Don't send anyone up the road." Over and over. Different voices. Male, female, young, old. Then one voice cut through the others. My voice? It said, "Wren Ridge 7 to base. Do not send anyone up the road." I stopped breathing. I had never said that sentence. Not exactly. Not yet. The phones went dead. The line with Nora disappeared. The desk light flickered once and shut off. Only the emergency lights remained. They cast the room in a dull red glow. Outside, the storm seemed to get louder. Wind pushed against the windows hard enough to make the glass tremble. I stood up and moved toward the front door. I did not open it. I just looked through the narrow window beside the handle. The parking lot was empty. The 2 service trucks were still there. Snow had begun collecting on their hoods. Then I saw a line of footprints. They started at the gate, crossed the parking lot, and ended directly beneath the front window. I looked down. There was no one outside, but the footprints were there, deep, fresh, pointing toward the door. The radio clicked again. The man spoke softly. "He's not outside." I stepped away from the window. "What do you want?" I asked. For the first time, the voice sounded almost relieved. "I want you to listen." The building went quiet. No wind, no static, no hum from the heater, nothing. Then I heard footsteps, not outside, inside the station. They came from the hallway. Slowly, one step, then another. The storage room door handle turned. I backed away from it. The door opened an inch, then stopped. I could see darkness through the narrow gap. The emergency lights did not reach inside. "Who is there?" I shouted. Nothing answered. The radio crackled. "Don't go in there," the voice said. I grabbed the flashlight from the desk. My hand shook so badly I dropped it once before turning it on. The beam cut through the red emergency light. I aimed it at the storage room door. It was closed again, completely shut. Then I saw something taped to the floor in front of it. A laminated Ranger ID card. I moved closer. The picture on the card was faded, but the name was still readable. Daniel Rusk. The card was wet. Water dripped from one corner onto the floor. I crouched down and picked it up. The plastic was ice cold. On the back, written in black marker, were 4 words: "Don't open the north gate." I looked at the wall map. The north gate was on Tower Road. It had been locked for years. No one had mentioned it. I returned to the desk and checked the camera feed. The Tower Road screen was back. The storm had cleared slightly. The gate was visible, and it was open. I could not understand it. The steel gate should have been chained. The lock should have required a key, but it stood wide open, swinging slightly in the wind. Beyond it, the old road disappeared into the trees. And in the middle of the road, just before the forest swallowed the camera's view, there was a bright white light. Not a vehicle, not headlights, just one steady light, like a lantern. The radio came alive. "Don't let it reach the station." "What is it?" I said. The voice did not answer. Instead, I heard something else. Second transmission. This one was clear, professional. The voice of a county deputy. "Wrenridge Station, this is Unit 4. We're at the North Gate, requesting entry." I looked at the camera. There was no patrol vehicle, no headlights, no deputy. Only the open gate and the white light farther up the road. "Unit 4, I said carefully. "Confirm your location. North Gate. Visibility is poor. We have a possible missing person in the area." The voice sounded real, too real. "Give me your call sign again." "Unit 4. Who is your partner?" There was a pause. Then the radio voice replied, "Open the gate, Cal." The white light on Tower Road moved, just slightly closer to the camera. I backed away from the desk. The radio speaker hissed. Then Daniel Rusk's voice returned. "Don't use the radio anymore." I reached toward the power switch. Before I could shut it off, the station's front lights came on. The parking lot flooded with white light. Every exterior lamp, every floodlight on the tower, every motion sensor, the darkness outside vanished. For 1 second, I saw the entire road clearly. The gate, the snow, the service trucks, the forest, and hundreds of footprints. They covered the parking lot, not leading toward the station, leading away from it, as if dozens of people had been standing around the building, and then all left at once. The lights went out again. Everything returned to darkness. The radio clicked one final time, and this time, I heard my own voice, not through the speakers. Behind me, "Cal." I turned A man stood at the far end of the hallway. He wore a ranger jacket, old style, dark green, with a faded patch on the shoulder. His face was pale beneath wet hair. He looked exhausted, not angry, not threatening, just exhausted. In one hand, he held a portable radio, in the other, a flashlight. He raised the radio toward me. The device was cracked and mud-stained. Daniel Rusk's name was written on it in faded tape. The man looked at me. Then he said, "You have to keep the gate closed." I did not move. I could not. "Are you Daniel?" I asked. The man did not answer. The radio in his hand crackled. A voice came through it. My voice. "Ren Ridge 7 to base. Do not send anyone up the road." The man's expression changed. He looked frightened. Then the station lights came back on. Bright. Normal. The radios went silent. The hallway was empty. There was no man. No wet footprints. No old radio. Nothing. Only Daniel Rusk's ID card on the floor. At 3:14 in the morning, the county deputies arrived. Real deputies. 2 vehicles. Blue lights flashing through the snow. They searched the station, the parking lot, the west trailhead, Tower Road. They found the north gate open exactly as I had seen it. The chain had been cut, but the lock was still hanging in place. The deputies followed the road as far as they could before the snow made it impossible to continue. At sunrise, they reached the old lookout tower. The building had collapsed years earlier. Most of it was buried under fallen branches and snow. But inside the remains of the tower, they found a rusted metal box, the kind rangers used to store emergency equipment. Inside were old weather reports, a flashlight with dead batteries, and a cassette recorder. A tape inside was damaged, but they recovered enough of it to hear one voice. Daniel Rusk's. He was breathing hard. Wind was roaring around him. Then he said, "If anyone hears this, do not open the north gate. He follows the lights." The recording ended there. I left Renridge Station before winter ended. I transferred to an office job in Missoula. No night shifts. No radio consoles. No forests. For a while, I told myself I had gotten out. Then, 6 months later, I was working late at the county office when someone called me over to the dispatch room. A new operator was sitting at the radio desk. She looked pale. Her hand was shaking. "There's a ranger station calling," she said. "Which one?" "Ren Ridge." I looked at the screen. The call sign was active. Ren Ridge 7. The operator pressed play on the recording. Static filled the room. Then a man's voice came through. Low. Broken. Trying not to panic. "Ren Ridge 7 to base." The room went cold. The voice continued. "Don't send anyone up the road." And then it said my name. "Cal, turn off the west camera. Number, story 5. The voice in the closed mall. I worked the overnight cleaning shift at Westfield Commons for almost 8 months. It was not a glamorous job. The mall was old, half empty, and slowly dying. Most of the big stores had closed years earlier. The department store at the north end was boarded up. The movie theater had shut down after the pandemic. The food court still had a few places open during the day, but by 9 at night, the whole building felt like something people had forgotten to demolish. I liked working there. That sounds strange now, but I did. During the day, Westfield Commons was loud and irritating. Children running through the halls, teenagers sitting on the escalators, people yelling into their phones, music playing from 3 stores at once. At night, after the last shoppers left and the security gates came down, the place became quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. There was a difference. My shift started at 11. By then, the cleaning crew had already finished the entrances and bathrooms. I worked alone in the central section, the old food court, the west corridor, and the vacant wing near the closed department store. My job was simple. Empty the bins, mop the tile, clean the glass doors, check the restrooms, make sure no one had been locked inside. At least that was what the job was supposed to be. The first strange thing happened during my second week. I was mopping near the fountain in the center of the mall. The fountain had been turned off for years, but they kept it there because removing it would cost too much. At around 1:15 in the morning, the overhead speakers clicked on. I stopped mopping. If for a second I thought the intercom system had glitched, then a woman's voice spoke. "Attention, Westfield Commons shoppers. The mall will be closing in 15 minutes. Please make your final selections and proceed to the nearest exit." The announcement was normal. Almost. The mall had closed 4 hours earlier. I looked around the empty corridor. The lights were dimmed. Most storefronts were covered by metal grates. The only thing moving was the reflection of my own mop bucket in the dark glass. Then the announcement repeated, but this time the woman's voice was quieter, slower. "Please make your final selections." I called the security desk. The guard on duty was a man named Luis. He was friendly, older than me, and had worked there for almost 10 years. "Did you just make an announcement?" I asked. "No," he said. "The speakers are on." "What did they say?" I told him. There was a pause. Then he said, "Probably the timer. It gets weird sometimes. Can you turn it off?" "I'll check." A minute later, the speakers clicked again. This time, there was no announcement, just static. Then a child's voice said, "Mom?" I looked toward the east corridor. No one was there. The voice came again. "Mom, where are you?" I called Luis back. "Are you messing with me?" "What?" The speakers. "I'm in the control room," he said. "I'm not touching anything." Then he stopped speaking. "What?" I asked. Luis did not answer right away. Finally, he said, "Don't go into the north wing." "Why?" "Just don't." I laughed nervously. "Luis, what is going on?" "He see her. The old intercom system has been acting up for years. Sometimes it pulls old recordings." "Old recordings of what?" "Things." I waited. Then he said, "A kid got separated from his mother in the mall a long time ago, before I started here. He was found eventually, but people say the announcement still plays." "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." The call ended. For the rest of that night, I stayed in the central corridor. I did not go near the north wing. I did not look toward the dark hallway beyond the shuttered department store. And I definitely did not use the old staff lift near the freight doors. For a while, nothing else happened. Then, about 3 weeks later, Luis quit. He did not give notice. He just stopped showing up. The mall manager said he had taken another job, but one of the daytime cleaners told me Luis had left his uniform in the security office. His keys were still hanging on the wall. His coffee cup was still on the desk. No one knew where he went. After Luis left, they hired a temporary guard from a private security company. His name was Dennis. He was young, maybe 22 or 23, big guy, always wearing headphones around his neck. The first night we worked together, he made fun of the building. "This place is dead," he said. I told him it was not funny. He smiled. "Relax, it's a mall. What's gonna happen? The mannequins come alive?" I did not answer. At 1 a.m, I was cleaning the tables near the food court when every light in the building shut off. Not dimmed, not flickered, off. For a second, the mall was completely black. Then the emergency lights came on. The red exit signs glowed at the ends of the halls. The vending machines hummed back to life. And somewhere far away, an escalator started moving. I stood still. The escalators were supposed to be off at night. They had been turned off manually years ago because one of them had a mechanical problem. But I could hear it, the steady mechanical clatter metal steps moving upward. I grabbed my radio. Dennis? Static. Dennis, do you copy? Nothing. I tried again. Dennis? Then his voice came through, but it did not sound like Dennis. It sounded small, far away. Can you see the lights? I froze. Dennis? The radio crackled. Then the voice whispered. He opened the gate. I left the food court and walked toward the central atrium. The mall was washed in weak red emergency light. Every storefront was dark. Every window reflected the hallway back at me. At the base of the escalator, I saw something moving on the upper level. At first, I thought it was Dennis, a tall person standing beside the railing. But when I got closer, I realized it was a mannequin. One of the old display mannequins from a clothing store that had closed months earlier. It stood on the second floor walkway. White plastic skin. No eyes. No clothes. Both arms hanging at its sides. I knew it had not been there before. The abandoned store was on the other side of the mall. Its gate was supposed to be locked. I looked up at it. For a few seconds, it did not move. Then the overhead speakers clicked on. Attention, Westfield Commons shoppers. The same woman's voice, clearer than before. The mall is now closed. I backed away from the escalator. Please proceed to the nearest exit. The mannequin's head turned, just slightly, toward me. I ran back through the food court, past the dark tables, past the closed pizza stand, past the empty arcade where the machines flashed silently behind the grates. I did not stop until I reached the janitor's closet near the south entrance. I locked myself inside. For a minute, I just stood there with my back against the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Then my radio clicked. Dennis's voice came through. Hey, where are you? He sounded normal. Dennis? Yeah. Are you okay? I'm in the north wing. The gate to the old department store is open. I close my eyes. Get out of there. What? Get out now. I think someone is inside. Dennis, leave. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, there's a kid in here. I stopped breathing. What? He's standing near the old customer service desk. Don't go near him. He needs help. Dennis, listen to me. Do not talk to him. Do not go closer. The radio crackled. Then Dennis said something so quietly I almost missed it. He's asking where his mum is. The line went dead. I called him again. No answer. I called the mall manager. No answer. I called emergency services. The dispatcher asked whether there was an intruder. I said I did not know. I told her the guard had entered a closed section of the mall and was not responding. She said officers were on the way. It would take 12 minutes. 12 minutes. I looked at the map on the wall of the janitor's closet. The north wing was on the other side of the building. I knew I should have stayed where I was. I knew I should have waited for police. But Dennis was young. He was stupid, maybe, but he was still there. He was still alone. So I grabbed my flashlight and started walking. The mall was darker than I had ever seen it. The emergency lights did not reach every corner. Some corridors were almost completely black. As I passed the closed bookstore, I saw movement behind the metal gate. I stopped. The store was empty. The shelves had been removed months ago. There was nothing inside except a few cardboard boxes and a broken display rack. But I could hear pages turning, slowly, one page after another. I kept walking. Near the old jewelry store, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. No one, just the long corridor, the red lights. The shadow of my own body stretched across the tile floor. Then the speakers came on again, but the woman's voice was gone. This time, the speaker played a recording of a child crying. Not loudly, just a small, exhausted cry. I followed the sound toward the north wing. The gate to the old department store was open. It should not have been. The gate was heavy steel, with a padlock that required a key from security. But it stood, pulled halfway up. Behind it was darkness. The department store had been empty for nearly 4 years. The sign above the entrance still read, Harrison's. Half the letters were burned out. I shone my flashlight inside. Dust covered the floor. Old display counters stood in rows. A few mannequins remained in the distance, draped in plastic sheeting. "Dennis?" I called. Nothing. I walked in. The air smelled old. Damp carpet, mold, dust, and something sweet, like spoiled fruit. The child's crying had stopped. Then I saw a light near the back of the store, a small blue glow. Dennis's flashlight. It was lying on the floor beside the customer service desk. His radio was next to it. I picked it up. "Dennis?" No answer. Then someone whispered from behind the desk, "Mom?" I stepped backward. The flashlight beam shook in my hand. A little boy slowly stood up from behind the counter. He looked maybe 6 years old. He wore a red jacket. His hair was wet and stuck to his forehead. His face was pale, too pale. "Are you lost?" I asked. The boy looked at me. He did not blink. "I can't find my mom." My mouth went dry. "Where is Dennis?" The boy tilted his head. "Who?" "The security guard." He looked toward the darkness behind me. Then he smiled. "He went to look for her." I turned around. At the far end of the department store, between 2 rows of empty display stands, someone was standing in the dark. I could not see their face, but I could see a security jacket. Dennis's jacket. The person lifted one hand, slowly, then pointed toward the emergency exit door behind me. The boy whispered, "Don't let him lock you in." The lights came on, all at once. Bright, white, fluorescent lights flooded the department store. For a second, I saw everything clearly. The empty racks, the broken counters, the old sale signs hanging from the ceiling, and dozens of mannequins. They were everywhere, standing between the aisles, facing the customer service desk, facing me. Every single one had its head turned toward the boy. Then the lights went out again. I ran. I did not look back. I grabbed Dennis's flashlight, his radio, and ran toward the exit gate. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Not one person. Many footsteps. Plastic heels tapping against tile. Click, click, click. I reached the gate and pushed it down. It was heavy, too heavy, but it moved. I pulled it lower until it was just above the floor. Then I saw a small white hand slide beneath it from the other side. The fingers reached toward my ankle. I kicked backward and ran. The police arrived as I reached the south entrance. 2 officers came through the front doors with flashlights. I tried to explain the old department store, the child, Dennis, the mannequins. They looked at each other the way people do when they think you are in shock. Then one officer asked, "Where is the guard?" I pointed toward the north wing. They found Dennis 20 minutes later. He was sitting on the floor in the old customer service area, alive, but he would not speak. He had his hands over his ears. His eyes were open, wide, terrified. When the officers tried to move him, he began repeating the same words. "I told her the mall was closed." Over and over, I told her the mall was closed. The police searched the department store. They found no child, no mannequins outside the old displays, no sign of forced entry. But they did find something under the customer service desk, a child's red jacket, small enough for a 6-year-old. Inside the pocket was an old plastic mall token, the kind they used to give out at the arcade. On one side was the old Westfield Commons logo, On the other side was a date, the 14th of October 2003. The manager later told me that a boy had gone missing in the mall that night. He had been separated from his mother near the food court. The building was searched for hours. He was eventually found in the department store, hiding beneath a customer service counter, alive, but different. That was the word the manager used. Different. The child never spoke again after that night, and his mother refused to say what he told her when she found him. Westfield Commons shut down 6 months later. The stores closed. The food court was emptied. The doors were chained. I left town not long after. I never went back. But sometimes, when I drive past an old shopping mall late at night, I look at the dark entrances. I look at the locked glass doors. I look at the empty parking lot, and I wonder how many people were told the building was closed before they realized they were not supposed to leave.